Well, as NATO leaders prepare to meet in Ankara, one region is expected to be high on the agenda. That's the Black Sea. Russia's war against Ukraine's turned the sea into one of Europe's most important security frontiers and made NATO member Turkey a key player in protecting vital shipping routes. On board a Turkish Navy ship searching for drifting mines, we find our correspondent, Julia Hahn.
Out here in the western Black Sea, this Turkish Navy ship is searching for a threat that's difficult to spot and potentially devastating. Sea mines, laid during Russia's war against Ukraine, some have broken loose from their moorings, drifting into international shipping lanes.
You and your team
Rear Admiral Özgür Erken and his crew are trying to find them before they can strike. The Black Sea is a vital trade route carrying grain, energy and other goods between Europe and Asia. Just one drifting mine can damage a cargo ship or disrupt shipping for days, he tells me.
Whenever we detected, immediately our special teams destroy or neutralize these sea mines. The main goal is make this Black Sea safe and secure for all the merchant ships and other activities at sea.
Turkey is carrying out this mission together with Romania and Bulgaria. All three are NATO allies, and all three border the Black Sea. The aim is not to intervene in the war, but to prevent its dangers from spreading.
This mission may be about searching for sea mines, but it reflects a much larger reality. The Black Sea has become one of Europe's most important security frontiers, and Turkey is right at the center of it.
It controls the Turkish Straits, the Bosphorus and the Dardanelles, the only maritime link between the Black Sea and the Mediterranean. After Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine in 2022, Ankara invoked an international agreement, the Montreux Convention, limiting the passage of warships through the straits. Many analysts say that helped prevent the conflict from expanding further across the Black Sea.
Turkey plays a very critical role in controlling essentially Russia's freedom of action to operate not just in the Black Sea, but in the Mediterranean. Turkey has become more important in Allied perceptions for that reason, despite the fact that the political relationship between Ankara and many of its NATO partners has not been easy.
President Recep Tayyip Erdogan has been walking a diplomatic tightrope. Turkey supplied combat drones to Ukraine, but it also maintained close economic and political ties with Russia, often frustrating its NATO allies.
The Turks like to say that they are pro-Ukraine without being anti-Russia. That's a difficult balancing act. At the end of the day, Turkey is part of NATO. It's an increasingly important member of NATO, as we were saying, and therefore that gives it a certain, not just standing, but a certain posture when it comes to dealing with Moscow.
Back on board, today's patrol ends without finding a mine. But footage from an earlier operation shows what happens when they do. Specialist divers approach the mine, attach explosive charges and destroy it in a controlled blast. So far, Turkey, Romania and Bulgaria say they have cleared dozens of mines and suspicious objects. But the danger remains.
This is a kind of preparation for the upcoming mine clearance operations in the Black Sea. And Turkey, together with the other two allies, is getting prepared for this activity. And when the war is over, we are going to conduct mine clearance operations in vicinity of Ukraine and where the other places where the mines are present.
Clearing mines won't end the war in Ukraine, but it shows how closely that war is tied to security in the Black Sea, and why Turkey's role inside NATO is likely to remain crucial long after the fighting stops.
I'm going to talk now with Elizabeth Braw. Elizabeth is a senior fellow with the Atlantic Council's Transatlantic Security Initiative in their Scowcroft Centre for Strategy and Security. Welcome back to DW, Elizabeth. We have seen a report about Turkey leading efforts to keep the Black Sea navigable despite that continuing war. Give us an idea of the Black Sea's importance to Turkey and to Russia.
Well, the Black Sea is incredibly important to every coastal state in that around that body of water. And we have to remember they are very different in nature. Ukraine is also a coastal state. And that was the reason that Russia started attacking civil shipping or merchant shipping in the early days of the war, and also Ukrainian commercial infrastructure, i.e. ports. And that's where Turkey played a significant role in mediating so that Ukraine could keep exporting that grain that we were all worried about in that early stage of the war. Russia wanted to essentially curtail Ukraine's ability to export grain, which is why it attacked merchant shipping. And Turkey played a key role in getting that shipping lane, or that grain lane, as it were, open so that Ukraine could keep exporting. That tells you something, I think, about how important the Black Sea is to Ukraine, for example.
And if you focus on Turkey for a moment, President Erdogan has made much of his determination not to pick a side in the Ukraine war. He provides military support to Ukraine and he buys weapons from Russia. How different is Turkey's view of Russia from its NATO allies?
Turkey really is the odd man out within NATO when it comes to its relationship with Russia, and that has been the case ever since Turkey joined. It was always a little bit of the odd man out within the alliance, but the other members decided that it was better to have Turkey inside the alliance than outside. And I think that assessment really has turned out to be a wise one. It has been useful for NATO to have Turkey inside the alliance. And it is useful to this day, because now we'll have the NATO summit in Ankara. And I think of all the NATO member states that could have hosted this particular summit, Turkey is the one that's best place to do it, because President Erdogan is a leader that President Trump respects, and he wouldn't want to spoil Erdogan's party.
Right. So NATO allies, they regard Turkey as being what, a useful link to Putin rather than a chink in NATO's armour?
I don't think primarily a useful link to Putin, because it is very difficult to get through to Putin in any way, or to influence his thinking in any way. But Turkey is a major military power, and it's especially a major military power in its part of the world, which is a part of the world where NATO is not otherwise strongly represented. So it is a great military ally with professional and distinguished armed forces. And again, somebody like President Erdogan can be annoying. Sometimes he blocked Sweden's accession to NATO for a long time, even though Sweden was a perfectly qualified candidate. But at the end of the day, on balance, it is useful to have that military ally in that part of the world.
Where do you think his loyalties really lie?
I think with President Erdogan himself, and with the retention of power, as so often happens with strong men. They come to power in many cases wanting reform, being earnest and serious about wanting reform, about wanting to change their countries, modernize their countries. They quite like power, and they stay in power, and they become quite enamored with power. That's not unique to authoritarian leaders, but especially authoritarian leaders. And for President Erdogan today, what would he do if he were not the leader of Turkey? It's difficult to imagine him doing anything else, and that's why I think we'll see him lead Turkey for quite a while still. And we should remember that the opposition in Turkey has seen its activities curtailed in recent years.
Thanks for talking us through that, Elizabeth. Elizabeth Braw from the Atlantic Council.